the best way, right? Even questions like who, if you want to practice speaking, who should you talk to? What do you guys think? If you want to practice your English, who should you talk to? Foreigners? Friends, yeah, right? If you're practicing something, that means it's not perfect yet. You could make a lot of mistakes, right? Like if you're practicing how to dance, right? So, if I'm practicing how to dance, will I do it in front of my class when there's a camera? Will I be too embarrassed? If I'm practicing something, I want it to be somewhere where I can make mistakes and not feel too embarrassed. So friends, yeah, talk in English with your friends. 每天可以用一点点的英文，可以, right? Every day use just a little bit of English and talk to your friends. If you live with your family, talk to your parents, your brother, your sister, right? And then when it's comfortable, when there's no 不好意思, then you start doing it more, right? So, this is really important. And it works well with this topic because what's the easiest way to start speaking? The best way to start talking to somebody? That sounds like a cell phone. What's the best way to start talking to someone? If you want to practice, what's the best way? Chatting. How do you start chatting?
Like favorite thing, like gamer or movie, like.
Okay, so you've got the right idea, but here's the thing. If I want to start chatting with you, and I just go up to you and I say, I like playing this game on this system. 有没有一点奇怪? But if I go to you and say, what's your favorite game? Right? When we start a conversation, one of the easiest, best ways is to focus on this. Ask questions first. If you ask the question, the other person has to think of the answer, right? If you ask the question, then you get to pick the topic, right? If I say, what's your favorite game? Then we're talking about games, right? If I just wait for you to talk, then you pick the topic. Maybe it will be games, maybe it will be cars, right? So if I ask, it's easier for me. These are really important. So when it comes to speaking practice, you need to have a reason to practice. You need to have a motivation. You need to do it in the right place. Where should you practice? Well, you should practice with people that you're comfortable with. But if you practice in a place that's really noisy, maybe it won't be very good. It's harder to hear, right? So where is important? When? When should you practice? when the teacher says to practice. So, in one semester, you have to come here one time, right? Is that enough? Is that enough? 2 hours for the whole semester. Is that enough time to practice English? When should you practice? Where we can change this to how often. How often should you practice? How often? Let's say in 1 week, how many times should you practice? Okay, if this is basketball, right? If you want to play basketball, how many times should you practice every week? Is 1 time enough? 1 time every week? If you want to exercise, if you exercise 1 day every week, is that enough? This is speaking and listening, so you have to speak too, right? Needs more, right? 一定是每天吗? Right? You don't have, it doesn't have to be every single day, but maybe at least 4 times a week would be good. Well, every day would be great. But if you want to practice something, if you want to get better, at least 4 times a week would be good, right? It doesn't matter if it's English or if it's basketball or piano, right? Whatever you want to practice, if you don't do it often enough, it won't help you. Okay? So, don't forget these questions. 这个里有个问题的字, right? How do you say the 6 question words in Chinese? 这个你们都知道. Who? 中文的? What? 什么? Why? 为什么? How? Yeah. There's a bit of a problem with what and how in Chinese, right? At least to me, they sound the same. Maybe I'm wrong. Where? When? Alright. Are there any others? Helen? That covers most of the ideas. If you can ask all of these questions, then you will learn something about that person or that place or that idea. Okay? So, speaking and listening, they go together. But just because they don't use a dictionary doesn't mean that they are easier, right? For some things, speaking and listening is easier, right? 中文的讲法比较简单，写中文字真的很难, alright? You guys know that your language is one of the hardest languages in the world, right? So writing in Chinese is really, really, really hard. But even in English, speaking is usually easier than writing. Why? How is speaking and writing different? When we talk about learning and practicing, one of the most important things to do is to see how things are the same and how they are different. And same thing with everything in Chinese. 中文的发音跟英文的发音 because otherwise you're not learning anything. 所以第一个问题是，你们了解中文的发音吗？ Do you really understand Chinese pronunciation? 有没有
I guess so.
？OK， 注音符号都了解吗？ Okay. Before you try to understand English sounds, you need to understand Chinese sounds. Because most of your mistakes in English are not because of English. They're because of Chinese. Okay? Same thing with grammar. 英文的文法跟中文的文法有关系吗？ No. There are some things that are the same. Some things are very different. Okay? In English and in Chinese, all of our sentences have the same basic idea. There's an action, there's a verb, you'll get 动词, right? Something that happens. But, I hope I'm not boring you. Alright? But there's a problem with Chinese sentences because you don't always need to say who does the action. 中文的句子一定需要动词。差不多 right? 可是不一定需要助词。关门 right? 助词在哪里？